Welcome! We're going to go ahead and start our value shading today. So we're going to start with our name up here. I'm going to put Mrs. Dowdy. Today's date. And for period, we can just put art. All right. So it says use a pencil to create 10 values going from the darkest dark to white with grays, 8 grays in between the boxes below. So I'm going to decide which one's going to be light and which one's dark. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this one as light. For the first one, I'm not going to put anything because the lightest we can get is the white of the page. So I'm going to leave that there. Then down here, I'm going to decide will be very dark, but I'm going to work my way over slowly. I'm going to start using my pencil as an art tool. So I'm going to put it on the table and pick it up on the side like this and barely tickle the page for the first box, like barely anything there. That's it, I'm done. Move on to the next one. Doing more zigzags, but barely any darker than the first box. Make sure you fill it in, so don't leave any corners uncolored. Move on to the next one. We're gonna press a little bit harder, do more zigzags to create a darker value, but not too much darker, just a little bit darker. Just like that. There's a little bit of unevenness. I'm gonna try to kind of clean that up a little bit, but I'm not too concerned as long as it's mostly the same value. Like that's pretty good. Moving into this middle one. Just like that. We're getting into our mid-grays here, so that's a little bit darker. Now I'm going to start kind of shifting my hand towards the middle of my pencil. Still not really close, but more like the middle like this. I can even tuck it in my hand like that if I want to. It helps you use the side more so you're not pressing directly onto the tip. We're not writing, we're shading. So we want to make sure that we're using the side of the pencil and not the tip of it. Get to the very edges, make sure you fill up your box. It's a little bit darker, so every time we're getting darker. Next one, pressing even more, going back over it more. Like that. Next one even more. So what is the point of this value scale? That's what this is called, is a value scale. What's the point of it? It's to find out how dark your material can get. So how dark can my pencil get? These are the kinds of pencils that you got in your art kit. So we're finding how dark we can get it. Try not to do this with a mechanical pencil. You can't hold it like this as easily and shade with the larger piece of lead like this. Mechanical pencils are not great to sketch with or try to add shading or blending. You can do it. It's not impossible. It's just not the best material in my opinion. I like these wooden pencils. Darker, so I'm pressing even darker. I'm gonna go ahead and shift more towards the end of my pencil. Press lightly. I'm getting a little bit more towards the tip because I'm gonna press pretty hard on this next one. All right, so now we're gonna see how dark we can go without breaking the pencil or ripping the page. Go pretty dark on this one. We're gonna see how dark it goes. Rub it into your page. Make sure you get the whole box. Most students struggle with getting the whole box, so don't forget to go all the way to the corners. I don't want to see little scribbles in the middle of your boxes. Go all the way to the corners. Fill it up with your value. This one's really dark, and there's a couple of grays in here that are very similar, so I'm going to go ahead and darken some of these. I'm going to shift my hand a little bit farther back because I don't want to scribble too hard on them or anything. So I'm going to darken this one just a little bit. Go ahead and darken this one a little bit more. So each box has its own value. You don't want them to look too similar. So if any of these look too similar, move back over like I'm doing and just kind of darken a little bit. Make sure you get the whole box. Go back and get those edges if you need to. Every box should have its own value. All right, so it has that slow gradation, that slow change over from dark over to light, and that is the goal. All right, so now we have light to dark. We're gonna do the same thing here. I think that these two should be a little bit darker as well. So before I move on, I'm gonna darken these just a little bit. There we go, that feels better. Okay, now I'm gonna move to this one. This one says, number 2, use a pencil to create 10 values, blending smoothly from the darkest dark to the white with 8 grays in between in the box below. So what this is asking for is basically what we did here, but we're gonna use blending instead. So this is why I have a napkin. We're gonna use napkins for blending. You can use other tools as well, but napkins are a really good and easy one to find. So I'm going to tilt my page a little bit so it goes easier with my wrist. This time, instead of light to dark, I'm going to go dark to light. It'll be a little bit easier. So I'm starting low down on my pencil, holding it sideways so you can put it on the table and lift it up. And starting with my darkest dark over here, just really pressing it in. I'm trying to kind of follow the values as I go down this page. Hope there's kind of an imperfection on my page there, that's okay. Not a big deal. I don't know if it got like ripped somehow or bumped. But I'm gonna try to match these shades as I'm going down. So shades are darker values. Then you can get into your tones, which are in here. The tones are kind of like the grays. So here's my shade, nice and dark. My tones are kind of like these mid grays to lighter gray. I'm gonna press lighter and lighter as I go down. Kind of like that, but this whole area is not quite showing or going to the edges of my space. So make sure you use the entire thing. Try to match what's over here. So that one's pretty close. This one's a little too light, so I'm gonna go a little bit darker right there. Right here it's a little bit too light to match up with that. So I'm gonna go darker. Match up with these. Make sure you go all the way up and down. If it goes out of the box, that's better for the rectangle than to not have enough shading. So that's why I'm using my wrist, and that's why I'm going this direction instead of like straight to the side. This is easier for me. I'm gonna shade it in side to side. All right, there we go. So now we have this. Now we're going to use blending. So we're going to take our napkin. You could use your finger and just rub on it, but your natural oils on your hand can cause dark smudges to happen. So we don't want to touch the page if we can avoid it. We're just going to wrap our finger. So take your finger, put it into your napkin. I have it double folded over. And then just wrap it around your finger like this. And this will help you to blend without smudging it weird or having any of those oils on the page. So I'm just gonna start light and go to dark. If I go to dark and go to light, it's all gonna turn the same gray because the graphite will be on my napkin. So I need to start with the light. I'm just gonna rub in little circles like this. And work my way down the page. Just like this. And then stop there. Now you can see how there's graphite on my napkin. So if I go back over here, it's going to darken this area. So if I want to go back to a lighter area, I need to switch to a clean spot on my napkin like this. And then I can go and rub in this lighter area. Try to just keep it in their own areas. Try not to go back and forth, go more vertical and kind of slowly side to side. Remember that if you bring this color over here, it's gonna darken this whole area lighter. That's lighter. Here we can see an example of my oils on my hand that have caused this darker mark. Can you kind of see it's like my finger mark. So this is what happens if you touch your page without clean hands, or if you just have oily or sweaty hands and you touch your page, you start getting smudges like that. So be careful as you're working with graphite. Try to wash your hands and make sure you don't have any oils or like rub on your hand where it's sweaty or anything, because that can happen very easily. It's hard to get rid of that. You can use your eraser to lightly kind of tap off some of that darker area as an attempt to get rid of it, but it's really pretty difficult because every time you blend it, it's just going to show up again. So it's really pretty difficult to get rid of. So I actually touched the page down here, so we're about to move this way, and I might have smudges in there because my hand touched it. So just be aware as you're using graphite or your pencil, it can smudge even just by touching the page without coloring it beforehand. So even just touching it beforehand, I could have smudges on my page. All right, number 3. Use the value shades from step 1 to create the sphere. So here we have all 8, here's step 1. So we have 10 values in here. And we're gonna use all of those in this. The last one, this darkest one that we did, will be here in the shadow. And then we're gonna slowly work our way towards the inner area. So I'm going to start with my shadow. I'm going to hold my pencil low, but I'm going to hold it like this because it's easier to shade. So you can just put it down, pick it up. I'm just going to shade this in. So as I'm going, I'm making sure that I'm getting all the edges, darkening it nicely. You can rotate your pencil a little bit if you feel like it's getting flat on one edge. Just rotate your pencil as you go, and you won't get too flat of one area on your pencil. Darken, darken, darken. Lots of sideways coloring like that. All right, I messed up a little bit there, so I'm just going to clean it up with my eraser. Pretty easy peasy. Next, I'm going to move into this area here, which should be one of these. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different values in there. So I'm going to start thinking about combining some of these into middle ones. But as the example shows, holding my pencil further back, it's kind of a dark gray. So I'd say this is probably around an 8 on our value scale up here. So fairly dark. Don't be afraid to rub that in. Darken that pretty well. If you lose the edge of your sphere, go back around with your pencil and just kind of find that edge again. Okay, the next one is a little bit lighter. So this is probably around a 7. So if I number these, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I would put the 0 there because there's no value on that one. This could be about a 7, so still pretty dark, but not super dark. Good artwork has all the different values. If you're trying to make something especially realistic, it's really important to make sure you have all the different values. Moving on to a 6. Still pretty dark, but not super dark. A little bit lighter than my 7. This next one will be like a 4 or a 5. I think this edge is not quite dark enough, so I'm going to go back and darken this edge. Okay, next one here. That's about a 4 or 5. So I'm gonna go fairly light on that. I'm not gonna press too dark. This one is a full circle. The other ones have been like a crescent shape. Full circle. Lighter value, using the side of my pencil. Going to the pretty light values. This one's like a 3. So I'm starting to press pretty lightly. Like that. Then this one is more like a 1 or a 2. So I'm just gonna very lightly, barely touch my page, very lightly add some in there. And then we have this illusion. I feel like some of these are a little bit light still, so I'm gonna go ahead and darken some of these. But we're gonna get this illusion of depth, where it gets darker as it goes away from the light. It's gonna be lighter towards the light, and that's what we want. Pretty good. All right. Some little areas here that just need to be filled in, so I'm gonna make sure I take my pencil, use the tip of it a little bit more to just get those edges. And that is our value sheet. Take a picture of this and send it to me. You can clean up the edges if you want to, or you can leave it like that. Either way is good. And you'll be done with this part and we'll move into the next one. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.